Hello guys, I'm the Codeholic and welcome to my channel. In this video I will cover PHP Yii2 framework in details. Yii framework is in the list of top 5 PHP frameworks. This will be basically a crash course and we will create a mini blog website. The framework is written fully in object-oriented programming, so you need to be familiar with OP. I have a list of videos on PHP OP, so if you're interested, you can check it out. Link in the video description. I'm working on Yii2 framework for almost 5 years, and I feel really comfortable with it. And I really like how it's written. It's really fast and powerful and provides a lot of options. But if it doesn't give you what you want, then you can easily customize and override particular class and particular functionality and add your own logic. It's really customizable. It has a dedicated team which works on the framework core, and you can post a question on Stack Overflow or on Github, and quite probably you will get an answer if you don't find something in the documentation or on forums. Okay, what are the prerequisites to learn Yii framework? You need to be familiar with object-oriented programming, as I already said. You need to have a basic knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and basic knowledge of databases. Okay. Why you should learn Yii2 framework? It's really fast. It's easily customizable and extensible, provides a high security. It's probably one of the most secure PHP framework on the market right now. It's suitable for small and large applications at the same time. It's really often used for e-commerce platforms, as an example. It provides powerful RESTful system, RESTful application. As I already mentioned, it's in the list of top 5 PHP frameworks. And it's quite demanded on US and European market. If we have a look at the following developers on Upwork, you can see what is their hour rate. It's quite high, and how much they earned working as a Yii developers on this platform. So the hour rates are quite high, and they have earned quite a lot working on the framework. So I think you should consider this also when you are choosing a PHP framework. Of course, it's not as demanded as Laravel or CodeIgniter, but it's quite demanded and it's quite powerful. So definitely you need to check out and compare with other frameworks. And it has some other features which makes it in some cases more powerful than other frameworks, even Laravel, for example, routing and validation and so on. Okay, some important features of the framework. It's written in an MVC pattern. It comes with Bootstrap out of the box. It has basic and advanced version, which is really convenient. Basic is a just single application. Advanced has backend and frontend, so it has 2 applications, and this in a single installation, which is really handy in some cases. You can have different virtual hosts for backend, different for frontend, and 2 separate applications with a single core it's really convenient. It uses PDO with active record syntax. It works fine with MongoDB and other non-relational databases, NoSQL databases. It has a lot of UI widgets of Bootstrap. It has client-side built-in validation. This is something I think which other PHP frameworks, for example, as I know, Laravel doesn't have client-side built-in validation. So I think there is some third-party package, but not built-in. It has really powerful routing, RESTful API support. It has powerful debugger and debug bar, which gives you information of how fast the page loads, how many queries are running, and so on. We're going to see all of these things. It has powerful role-based access control system also. to restrict access to some URLs for particular users. It comes with Gii, G-I-I, which is a code generation tool. So based on this tool, this is another very important thing which gives you possibility to generate some models or even crude applications, create, read, update, and delete of particular table in just seconds. So you generate a model based on the crude, and then you generate, you generate model based on the table of the database, and then you generate a crude based on this model. And less than in a minute, you can have a create, read, update, and delete of a table in the database. It's easily customizable, as I said, and there are much more things, believe me. Okay, let's have a look at the diagram of the framework itself. So there's an entry script first, which takes the request and creates an application. The application consists of components. The application can have 0 or many components, basically. Application can have modules, 0 or more modules, and the module you can think of as a small application. And the application has controllers, so it needs to have at least one controller to handle the request and return the response. And the module can have also controllers. So you can think module, as I said, as a small mini application. Okay, the controllers can have filters, and the filters have different purposes. Like filter can reject a request and return a response immediately. For example, if you are not allowed to access particular page, the filter can reject this immediately. Or filters can modify response, like you return an array from the controller and filter converts into JSON or XML. The controller then makes uses the model to get the data and renders the views. This is a standard MVC pattern. And the views can use widgets and asset bundles. Widgets are just UI components which renders like alert or button or drop-down list. And the asset bundle is a bunch of CSS and JavaScript files which is intended for some particular page. Okay. Okay, here is the flow of request and response. User makes a request to the entry script, the configuration file is loaded and application instance is created. Then the application resolves the current route, and based on this request component, basically every component of the application is a singleton. So there is only one instance of this particular class in this application, and you can access them as a singletons. Then based on this request component, the route is processed and controller is created. The controller has actions. The action basically is responsible to take the data of the request, then get some data from the model, render the view, and return the response to the user. And if there is if there are some filters attached to the controller or this particular action, it may reject the action and return the response immediately. There are basically two types of actions. Action which is inside controller, which is a method, and it starts with action word, action index, for example. And there are standalone actions which does some repetitive things, like, for example, generating a CAPTCHA. This is something that can be used on more than one page. It can be used on registration page, it can be used on contact page. And for this, eFramework provides a standalone action which generates a CAPTCHA. Then the action loads a model, as I said, and it renders a view, and the view, rendered view, is basically a response, and it's sent back to the user. Okay, first let's have a look of what we are going to build in this video. Besides that, we are going to learn how the framework works, we're going to learn a lot of things, we're going to build something. Without building, it's just boring. So we're going to build this website where you can create articles. You can basically register, log in, and create articles. And let's do this. Okay, I'm gonna register like my username Zura if it's not occupied. Okay, let's choose the Codeholic. The password. I have a rules here that the password should be at least eight characters, and this repeat must match the password field. We can test this also. You can see if it doesn't match. Okay, okay, let's register. Okay, now I am successfully registered. Okay, I'm gonna log in with my just created username. And now I can create article. This button was not visible before I logged in. Now I can create article like Yii2 framework exploring. Okay, and based on this title, this slug is automatically generated. Here I'm going to just put the same thing. Okay, let's save this. Now I see this update and delete buttons. Okay, I see here that is created just now by the Codeholic. In the list, my just created article goes at the top. If I open other articles, I don't see this update and delete buttons. Basically, we're doing here like checking validation that I don't have permission to edit someone else's article. So these buttons are hidden, but we also check behind in the controller that I don't have permission to edit someone else's article. This is created by John, so I don't have permission to edit John's article or delete. But if I see my article, I have these buttons. I can delete or I can update my article. So that's really simple, but we're going to learn a lot. We're going to work with database, we're going to work with forms and validation, we're going to generate controllers, use this GII to generate, create, read, update, and delete, and we're going to also work with rewriting. And finally, we're going to create a virtual host file. Right now, this application is started with PHP built-in server. Okay, really long intro. Now let's start installing our basic version of the application and just do what we want to do. We're going to install the application using Composer. So you can basically download the application from GitHub, or you can download the archive and extract it. But I'm going to use Composer. So if you don't have Composer installed in your system, you can check out the following link, which will be in the video description. Click on this Composer Setup Exe for Windows and just install with normally how you install a Windows application. If you are a Linux user, you need to run the following command, which will download Composer far file. And if you want to make it globally available, you need to run this sudo mv composer far into local bin composer file. And you will be able to use Composer globally on your Linux system, just like this. Okay. I'm doing this right now on Windows, so I'm going to open htdocs folder on my C drive. If you don't have XAMPP installed on your Windows system, you can just download and install. If you don't know how to install it, you can find also a video on this. I do have a video, but you can find someone else's video. Okay, let's open now CMD and navigate to this folder and run a command which will basically download basic application in this folder and installs it. Okay, so let's open CMD, navigate here, and now below there is installing Yii section. So I'm going to copy this line which uses Composer, as I said. Composer create project prefer dist. This means that I want a production ready version. This is the basic version. This identifies the basic version. You can install here. You can change this selected area and install the advanced version. And then the folder name, basically where I want to save this application. I'm going to call this Yii2 crash course. This will need a couple of minutes. If you're doing this first time, it will download everything. If you're doing this second time, it will download everything from cache. Let's wait a couple of seconds. Okay, it was installed, and now let's navigate to this folder and let's open it with PHP Storm. Okay. Right click on the project, open folder as PHP Storm. I'm using PHP Storm, but you can use VS Code or any other editor if you like. It really doesn't matter. Okay, PHP Storm already indexed the application, and let's have a look at the folder structure first. So we have a lot of folders. What we see immediately is that we have controllers, models, and views. So these three folders are essential for MVC framework, and of course we do have them. Besides that, we have config, which is just an array of PHP keys and values, and based on this config the application is initialized. The entry script is located under web index PHP, and here we define debug and env constants. Debug is true and is development. We require autoload PHP, and we require Yii class, and then we require the config web PHP and initialize the application and call the run method. The rest is done by the application itself. Okay, let's start application and see. Okay, I'm gonna use PHP Storm's built-in terminal, and if you're using PHP Storm, you can do like this, or you can open CMD or git bash and run the following command there. Go to the web folder and run php -s localhost : and the port. So I'm going to run this on port 8080. The server was started, and let's open it. And here is our application. We can navigate through pages like about, contact, login, and we see this captcha. This login basically is not connected to the database yet. We're gonna explore this right now. Okay, let's check out models first. We have contact form, login form, and user. And the contact form and login form are just, let me do like this. The contact form and login form are responsible for rendering the user interface in this case, and thus handling the submitted form. The user is a different kind of class. It's an identity. It implements the identity interface, and thus it implements a couple of methods like find identity by ID, find identity by access token, and so on. These methods must be implemented, and it's configured in the web PHP in the user component. This is a singleton user component, and it has here identity class, which is the app models users, which is the users class what we're looking at right now. It is not connected to the database. Here are just users static array, and here are username and password. So we can try login, put here like admin, and we're logged in, and we see this logout button. So nothing additional happens when you log in right now, just the authentication works. Okay, we're gonna see this contact form and login form in depth, but for now, here we have rules, and the login form and contact form both are extent of models. And the model is a data provider which also handles some logic. In this case, we define some fields, username, password, and remember me, and we have rules, and based on these rules, the validation of the form happens. We have username and password required, so when I click the login button, I see that both of them becomes red. So if I remove the password from the login form, from required rule, let's hit the login, and I see that only username becomes red. The password is still not changed. Okay, here below we have logic. We have built-in rules, by the way. We have built-in rules such as required, boolean, compare, string, and so on. And we can define other custom rules like we do right here, validate password. This validate password checks if the password is valid according to the static users array in this user model. And basically, if it's not valid, it adds error to the attribute, to the password attribute. So if we write here something incorrect password like, we see this incorrect username and password which is added right here. And then there's a logic, there's a login method which runs the validate, and the validate basically executes all rules which is declared in the rules method. And if the validate is valid, then we call this login method of this user singleton component and pass their additional parameters. Okay, and in contact form we have also rules right here, and as I said, based on these rules, validation is done. And we have here contact, which is intended to send an email, but right now it doesn't send because we don't have configured SMTP, and yeah. And let's have a look at views. Inside views, we have right now two folders: layouts and site. Or let's have a look at controllers first. We have single controller, site controller. We have behaviors, and the behaviors is a special type of classes which adds some additional functionality to a class. The behaviors can be attached to controllers, models, or any other classes basically. Which extends from the base object of Yii framework. And the right now in this case, we are using behaviors, but these behaviors are special behaviors. They are basically access, they are filters. And as we already talked, filters can reject the action and return the response immediately without executing the action. So in this case, we have access control, which basically tells the framework that this access control filter should only work on logout action, and it should allow to access the logout action for authenticated users only. So if you are not authenticated users, accessing the logout action is not able. Okay, and below there is a second filter which makes sure that when you access a logout, you are doing this with post method, and this is done automatically also by the framework itself. That this logout button, which is displayed when you log in, this logout has data. Let's see it. It has it's basically a form which has method post, and when you click on this logout button, it makes a request, a post type request. Okay, let's have a look at views. Below we have also in the controller, in the controllers we have also actions, and in this case these are standalone actions. This is CAPTCHA, which I mentioned when I was talking about standalone actions. This is a standalone action of CAPTCHA. This is a standalone action of error. Okay, and we have here index, login, logout, contact, and about actions. Every action starts with action and then the camel case naming of your method, like action index. And every action and every controller has its own ID. Like site controller has ID site, and my site controller would have an ID my-site. And the same happens for actions, like login, action login has ID login, and action my login will have an ID my-login. And if we look at the URLs, they look right now really strange. So there's index PHP, question mark, sites, and about, and site and contact, and so on. So we can change this by changing the following line on config web PHP. Frameworks provides two ways to provide URLs, like normal, like you see it right now with query parameters, and with pretty URLs. Okay, let me uncomment the following line, which is a URL manager component, and here two options are written: enable pretty URL true and show script name false. And what this does basically is that when you navigate through pages, you don't see index PHP anymore, and you don't see this question mark site equals something. And these kind of URLs are much better in my opinion. They look nicer. Okay, now let's have a look at views. Finally, we have a layouts folder and we have site folder. Basically, the layouts is what you think. It's basic skeleton of HTML with doc type and so on. It has some additional PHP code there to register CSRF meta tags and so on. We have here using some alert widget. We are using breadcrumb widget, and we're using here bootstraps widgets like navbar and nav. There are two ways to use widgets. As I said, widgets are just UI components. And the navbar widget is the above one, the black area. And there are two ways to use the widgets. With widget name and begin, and below there should be end method, or you can directly call nav widget or your widget name and widget, like it is done for breadcrumbs and alert and the nav. And this basically renders the navbar, the top area. We have home, about, contact, and so on. And if the user is guest, if it's not logged in, we show login. If it's logged in, we show this logout button. And we have here breadcrumb and alert, as I said, and this content. This content is a variable which contains the page HTML. So if I remove this content, I don't see the page content anymore. I can navigate between pages, but the content area is empty. That's because this content is what is the view file actually. So the controller, site controller, renders a view like this render index, and this index is the index PHP inside site. And the site is the ID of the controller. So we have site controller, it has ID site, and basically this renders index.php inside site folder. And this index.php contains the HTML what we see right now on the home page. And other pages obviously will contain the content of the like login, contact, and so on. And the error is HTML which is displayed when there is an error. Like if I put their additional one, this is not found, and we see that this HTML is used for rendering this not found page. Okay, below here is debug bar. And we see, as I said, which PHP version we have here, what is the status, what URL we are on, which controller and action we are using. When you mouse over to this, you see that there is written app controller, site controller, action index. How many logged messages we have, what is the total time, what is the total memory, and so on, if we are logged in or not, and so on. If we are connected to the database and using database also, we will see here how many queries are executed in the database. Okay, now let's connect to the database and change our user class to work with the database and to take basically users from the database. Okay, so let's first create database. I'm going to connect to the database using my PHP store. I have a MariaDB, localhost. Okay, I'm going to create a database and call it Yii2 crash course. Okay, execute it, and this database should be displayed right here, as we see. And now we need to update config db.php because there's written the database information. Here's written Yii2 basic, so I'm going to change this into Yii2 crash course. And my username is root, my password is empty, so everything is correct here. I'm going to close this. And now I want to create a user class. In best case, you would work with migrations. You should work with migrations. You should write migration, create migration file, and write there the logic of creating a user table. But I'm not going to cover migrations because that's just beyond this scope of this video. And I'm just going to create the user class. Okay, here is MySQL code which creates a user. I'm going to select and execute it. No database selected. Yes, we need to select the current schema. Execute it. And yeah, the user table was created. Now we need to go to the user class and modify some things here. First of all, we need to extend this user from the active record. And this active record, EDB active record, is a basic class which you should extend basically from this class if you want to map your existing class to the database table. And in this case, I want my user class to be mapped to the table, user table in the database, and I'm extending from active record. The table name is guessed automatically from the class name, but I can write here, override here, table name static method, and return here the table name inside the database. So if my database table name is called like my users, I would write here my users. Okay. Okay, now my class is mapped into the database table, and we need to update these methods, implemented methods like find identity by access token, and so on. Okay, so let me collapse this to have more space. We're not going to work with this static users array. Instead, we're going to work in the database. And here I'm going to write a select. So I'm going to select from the current class, from the current table, self. Then I'm calling find, and here I write where ID corresponds to past argument, and finally 1. So this basically searches a user by ID and returns it. The shorthand version for this would be find 1, pass their ID, and you don't need to write this anymore. So this finds the user by ID. For find by identity by access token, for this we need to write the same thing, return self find, and here where we have access token column in the database. Access token corresponds to the token, and we need 1 here, which returns 1 object, not an array. If we want to return a list, we would write here all, but we want to return just 1 object. And below here we have find by username, so I'm going to copy this and put it right here. And by the way, I forgot to mention, we can have a shorthand version of find if we change this into find 1, and instead of where and 1, we can pass here an array. And in this case, we need to say that username equals to the username passed argument. Get ID just returns the ID. Get auth key returns auth key, but this auth key is written in camel case, but we have underscore auth key in the database. So basically, we need to delete these fields. They will be based on this table name. Framework will map the current class to the table, and thus the columns of the table will be available inside the class or outside of the class. They will be public variables of the class properties. Okay, let's go down here. We return ID auth underscore lowercase key. We have here this validate auth key, which just compares. So we need to change this also. And here we have this validate password, which looks fine. So it just checks if the password is correct in the database or not. Okay, we changed everything here. And let's have a look at the login form. This login form, as we already said, has rules and has a couple of logic here, which checks if the user has, if the validation is successful, then we're going to log in. But we have here this find by identity, which previously, this is the app models users class, which previously was searching in the static array but now it checks in the database. Okay, and if we go to the login page right now and put here admin and admin, we see incorrect username and password, because right now the application works using database. If we have a look at the debug bar, we see here DB, and this says that 3 database queries were executed and it took 3 milliseconds. By clicking on this, we can see which queries were executed, like show full columns from user, select some things, and below there's select from user where username equals admin. And this query has been made when we tried to log in. Okay, let's add admin user in the database. Username is admin, password is admin right now. I don't save hashed passwords right now, but I'm going to change this in a couple of minutes. The auth key is just key 1, access token is just token 1. Let's save this and try to log in with admin once again, and boom, we are logged in. So let's add second user, which is demo with key 2 and token 2, and log out and try to log in with this demo table. Okay, we logged in, so this works fine. Now we have authentication based on the database, but we need to change the saving of passwords. So we cannot have passwords just like this. It's not secure, of course. We need to save passwords in an encrypted way, which is not decryptable. Okay, for this, let's implement the registration of the user. Okay, for this, we need to go to the controller, site controller, and below the login method, let's create new action. Let's call it sign up. Okay, and we have this login form, which is the extent of model and which does some validation and things there. So let's create a sign up form also. Sign up form. This should be an extent of model, base model, and it should have some properties here, like we need a username, we need a password, and let's also create password repeat. Okay, to compare password and password repeat to each other. I'm gonna override rules method and return rules from here. Okay, so this is the first rule, and in the first rule I'm gonna say that username, comma, password, comma, and password repeat are required. Okay, this is the first rule. The second rule is that username must be a string with minimum of 4 and maximum of, let's say, 16 characters. Okay, so here I'm writing a string, but I can write here an array, and this will work in exactly the same way. But if I want to put here also password, like I want password also to be a string with minimum 4 and maximum 16. I don't know why you should restrict password length in terms of maximum, but just showing to you. And here we need to write, okay, I don't want array here. I want to write password repeat. It should be a string also with minimum 4 and maximum 16. We can put this right here, by the way, password repeat. It should be string. And it should we should compare, the framework should compare password repeat into compare attribute, which is password. Okay, so password repeat, this is the rule name, compare rule, to the password, and they should be the same. This line basically is the rule for this. And let's create here sign up method, public function sign up. And the sign up should basically create a user in the database. So for this, we need to create an instance of the app models users, and we need to set the following fields, like username. This user model has the fields in the database, but PHP Storm doesn't autocomplete this. This is because it just can't understand, because the fields are not declared in the class. But okay, before I continue sign up, let me do the following. I'm going to show you Yii and generate basically some things for this user model, and then we can continue sign up method. Okay, so I'm gonna take out this code, everything basically except table name, And yeah, okay, I'm gonna take out this and go to the following URL, GII. And yeah, that's because we're implementing some interface, but we don't implement the methods. Okay, let's remove this for now, but I think we will have an error again, of course. Okay, let's have it like this. We're gonna generate a model. Okay, so I'm gonna click the user, and I'm gonna generate a user class based on this table name. This is the namespace, and I'm gonna skip basically everything and click this preview button, which shows me that it's gonna generate models user PHP. And if I click the div, it shows me what is the current version and what it will be if I click this generate and overwrite button. So the red ones will be what it is right now, and the green ones will be how it will be converted. Okay, so let's have a look. So rules will be added, attribute labels method will be added, and these things what we just copied, like find identity and so on, they will be deleted, but we have already copied them. So I'm gonna mark this checkbox and hit the generate button. And now, as we see, the user PHP was changed, and we have here this table name, which was there basically, but it didn't have this inherit doc. We have here rules, and we have attribute labels, and the rules basically have this string rule with max 55. So this is read from the database schema. The username varchar55, this is read from the database schema, and the password, auth key, and access token, which is max 255, this is also read from the schema. Okay, so we are gonna implement the identity interface. So I'm gonna identity interface, and then we need to implement this method, what we just copied. So I'm gonna paste this code right here, and we do have all methods implemented. And when we generated this model, these properties were added to the class. Now let's continue working on this sign up form and start writing username. And we see now that the PHP Storm auto-completes it. Username equals this username, user's password equals to the encrypted password. For this, I'm going to use security component. Is an application, the current application, and the application has security component, and it has generate password hash, which accepts the password and generates hash. It's obvious. We are assigning this to the password, and we need to generate some random strings for access token and for auth key. Okay, so user access token is, for this we're gonna also use security helper, and right here generate random string, and do the same for auth key, generate random string. And finally, we're gonna call user save. Okay, this basically returns true or false, whether the user has been successfully saved in the database or not. So we can just return whatever is returned from here, and that's it. Okay, so but it will be better if we write in the if statement, if user has been successfully saved, we return true. Otherwise, we write error, user was not saved, and we can here dump the fields, the errors, basically what happened. The user has errors, which is an array, but we cannot concatenate array and string together. So I'm going to use helper, which is called var dumper. It has dump as a string, and I'm going to pass errors here. So basically whatever would be written as a var dump of the errors, it will be returned as a string. And I'm gonna save it like this and return false right here. Okay, so if for some reason there's an error, let's remove this key and try to sign up, but we don't have created controller yet. Okay, so we have this sign up action, and we need to create here now a model, which is new sign up form. And I'm going to do the following: if model load up request post. Okay, so what this line basically do is that it takes the post data and puts it inside the model based on the rules of the sign-up form. Okay, so this will load the data inside the model. So after calling this statement, this username, this password repeat will be available and working. Okay, so if the data was successfully loaded there, and if the model sign up returned also true, then we have successfully registered user in the database, and we can just redirect to the home page. This redirect, let's call it up. The application has a home URL property or get home URL method, as you like. So this will redirect to the home page. Okay, but if for some reason the load or sign up was not successful, we're going to return this render sign up. Okay, so on the first load, let's we need to access like site/sign up, and this right now throws an error because we don't have this view file created. So let's go to the site, and basically I'm going to copy and paste login sign up PHP, and let's change it. Okay, so the model is not login form, but it's a sign up form. The form is active form. Okay, in code, please fill out the following fields to sign up. And the ID of the form is sign up form. This is a Bootstrap widget, Bootstrap form widget, which has a couple of fields. I'm not going to focus on each fields. I'm going to just leave it as it is right now. Username, password, remember me. We don't need this remember me. We need username, password, and we need password repeat. Okay, and below we have this submit button, and you may log in. Okay, we don't want this. Okay, let's save this and refresh the page. Undefined variable model. Yes, this is because when we are rendering this sign up view file, we don't pass the model. So this model sign up model we need to pass as a key value here. Okay, we pass the model, refresh the page, and the sign up was displayed, but it's called login. That's because here it's written login. Okay, refresh the page, and now let's try to register. Like Zura1234 is the password. If we don't match the password, then we see that password repeat must be equal to password. Okay, so I'm gonna make this same and try to, the button should be register, it should be sign up. Okay, but what we see right now is that we were redirected to the home page, which makes me think that the user was created successfully, and boom, the user Zura is there, and we see the password is encrypted, and auth key and access token are random strings. Okay, now the login, we need to change the login. Okay, so here I have right now I can log in with admin because I'm checking the plain password and it works fine, but I need to change this. So I'm gonna go to the login form, not in the login form but in the user, and below there is validate password method in the user model. So instead of this validate password, I'm going to use again security helper security component, which has a validate password, and it takes this password as a first argument, and the second argument is the hash. So the hash will be this password, which is a database password. Okay. Let me make sure that I'm passing this in the correct ordering. Yeah, the first one is password, second one is hash. So I'm going to save this right now and try to log in with the previous username and password, admin. Okay, and here I see error, hash is invalid, because now the security helper tries to check the admin, it tries to treat the admin as a hash, but it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm gonna delete these two users right now, and we have Zura as a username. So I'm gonna try to log in with Zura1234, and I'm logged in. Okay, so I can log out and try to register. We don't have register URL right here. Let's edit there, and then we can register as an admin. So here is the logic if I'm guest. So I'm going to copy this basically and put it below. If the user is guest, show sign up button, which should go to the /site sign up. If not, just show nothing. Okay, so refresh the page and we see sign up button right here. Click on this. Sign up form is opened. I'm going to write here admin. The password is also admin. Okay. Sign up, and we were redirected to the home page, which is what we want. We have successfully registered. We're going to show here an alert that I have successfully registered. But first, let me show you one thing. So here in the sign up form, we did the following. We created, we put this user save in the if statement. So if there's an error, we see this error. So let me expand this debug and do the following. I'm going to basically comment out the rules right now and refresh the sign up page. The form is still rendered, but the client-side validation is not active because the client-side validation is configured based on the rules, and the client-side validation is disabled. So I can basically now activate these rules, and I have here that username should be minimum 4 and maximum like 16. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to put there just 2 words like AB as a username, and I'm going to put passwords also incorrectly. Client-side validation is disabled, so this will be submitted back. This user save will be called, and also if we have look at the user model, there is this these rules, and it has username maximum 50. Okay, let's add this minimum right here. That's my mistake. Okay, minimum 4. Okay. Okay, let's hit the submit button, and we see below next to the log action there's one error, and clicking on this error we see what happened, and there's written this username. The error basically happened on the username field, and the errors are an array, and the first error is username should contain at least 4 characters. This error basically is generated based on this min 4, but this written inside the user model, not in the sign up form. Okay, so these rules basically don't do this. Okay, my mistake. Okay, and this error is necessary. Later you can configure the error so that you will receive an email on such things and so on. This is not really useful, receiving errors on on such kind of situations, but I'm just showing what's possible. Okay. Okay, we did user registration, we did user login. What we need to do next? Okay, let's create now articles table and articles model, and we can show a list of articles and create new article and so on. Okay, so for this I'm going to create first articles table in the database. So I'm going to delete this, and here is a code which creates article table with a couple of columns like ID, title, slug. The slug basically will be a unique identifier of the article, but based on the title. So based on the title, the slug will be generated. The body is a long text, created at, updated at. These are fields when the article was created and when the article was lastly updated. And created by and updated by are the fields when the article, who the article basically created and who updated. In our case, created by and updated by both will be the same. Okay, so we can just remove this updated by. Okay, and let's remove this second foreign key also. And here we have we are adding basically foreign key. We are changing this article table, adding foreign key which references to the user table. So user table's ID corresponds to the created by in the article table. So I'm going to run this, and this creates an article table in the database. Now, based on the key GII, I'm going to generate article model. So I'm going to use article table. The class name will be article. I'm going to leave everything as it is right now and click preview. So this generates article PHP. I'm going to hit generate and look at the models folder. Here is article PHP, which is the class what was generated right now. And it has this get created by. And this get created by is a relation, a many-to-one relation. So user has many articles and the article has one user. And this has one method does exactly the same thing. And this get created by method is also a kind of magic method which creates a property created by, which is added right here, property user created by. So created by called on the article basically references to the user object, the user instance of the following class, app models user class. Okay, now let's use the CRUD generator to generate CRUD for this article model. Okay, so here in the model class, we need to put the actual model, like this will be app models article. For search model class, we need to do the same thing, like app models article search. Controller will be app controllers article controller, and the view path will be the basically under views folder there will be article folder. Okay, so we want to create like this. So for this I'm going to use alias, which I haven't mentioned before. It app, which is an alias, and it refers to the root directory of the project. So app views article. Okay, the article is the ID of the controller. I'm gonna use here a list view for rendering the not the grid view but the list view, because I don't want my articles to be rendered in a table, in a grid style. Okay, or let's render grid view to have a view, and then we can change it into list view. Preview, hit generate, and the code was generated. So you see article controller is generated, which has a couple of behaviors and actions. Then article search model is generated, which is an extent of article model and overrides some rules and makes a search in the database. And the article folder with bunch of views, view files are generated in the views folder. And now what happens here is that when I'm accessing article in the URL, this automatically uses article index and action. And this shows the list of articles what we have right now. Of course, we don't have any articles, and it shows empty grid. And if we click this create article button, we see the form of the fields, of all fields basically in the database, like title, slug, body, created at, updated at, and created by. This created at, updated, and created by should be generated fields, so we should not be able to enter something there. So I'm going to go to the form, which is what is displayed right now, and remove these fields basically, created at, updated, and created by. And instead of this, I'm going to go to the article model and right here add behaviors method, which returns behaviors of the array. Behaviors are special classes which adds some functionality to the class or to the fields of the class. So here I'm going to use basically three behaviors. The first behavior is timestamp behavior, which is a behavior class name. This class name static method is deprecated. So I'm gonna use a class which is basically which works also in the same way. Right now my PHP Storm makes a warning on this because my language level is set I think to PHP 5.4 for some reason, and I don't let's skip it. Okay, so the language level is set to 5.4, but the actual PHP version, which is displayed right here, is 7.3, so this will work fine. Okay, so I'm going to use the timestamp behavior, and the timestamp behavior does the following. I'm going to follow this class, and there are basically two attributes, like created at attribute and updated at attribute. And what this behavior does is that when the record is created in the database, when the article will be created in the database, it will set the current time into both attributes, created at and updated at. And later, when the record is updated, it will modify updated at field to the current time automatically. So this is what we want. And we're going to use also blameable behavior, but we're gonna change it slightly. So I'm gonna use in an array notation like classes blameable behavior, and this blameable behavior is similar, but it works with who created and who updated this record. And here are basically two attributes, like created by attribute and updated by attribute. We don't have updated by attribute in the database, so we have created by. So I'm gonna set this updated by into false. Okay. And the third behavior I'm going to use is sluggable behavior. So I'm going to use also in an array notation like class is sluggable behavior. And the sluggable behavior has its purpose is to take one field and convert into a slug. Like I said, the slug will be generated from the title. And the sluggable behavior needs at least two attributes like slug attribute and attribute. So slug will be generated based on the attribute. So the slug default value has slug, which is written in the database also. So I'm gonna just pass there attribute, which will be title. So it will take the title and convert it into slug and save in the database. Okay, that's all for now. Let's refresh the page. We don't see these fields anymore. We see title, slug, and body. We can remove the slug also. Go to the form. It's also automatically generated. Okay, we can change it. Let's leave it. We can change it if we want. So let's create first article like Yii2 framework is not so bad. Okay, and put the same thing in the body. Hit the save button, and it tells that slug cannot be blank. That's quite true. We need to go to the article rules, and let me collapse this. We need to go to the article rules and remove this slug from the required field, because if it is empty, it will be automatically generated based on the title. If you put something there, it just won't generate. Okay, so let's refresh the page, put title, body, hit the save, and here is the view page of just created article. If we look at the article database table, we have here title, we have slug here, and we have a bunch of other fields. The created by is null. That's simply because we are not logged in, and the current user is not known for the application. Okay, but we have this created at, updated at, we have the ID, title, slug, and the body. And if we click these articles in the list, we see it like this. Okay, this is a grid view. It has also pagination, so when there are more than 20 articles, you will see pagination down below. Okay, let's change this from grid view into list view, because I don't want my articles to look like this. Okay, go to the index, and here is this grid view. Okay, so I'm going to change into list view. I don't want this filter model, and I don't want these columns because it works in a different way. I want to pass here item view, how each individual item should look like. And the possible options here are a view file, string, or a PHP closure function, which will return the string what will be displayed for each individual item. So I'm going to use a view file and call it article item. And I'm going to go to the article folder and create this PHP file article item. Okay, and the article item accepts a couple of arguments. So when the view is rendered, there will be a couple of arguments available. One of them is the model, and the model will be instance of the article active record object. So I'm gonna declare the model as an instance of article, so that I will be able to use model right here, and I will have also auto completion. Okay, so I'm gonna create a div. I'm gonna use h3 and output the title of the article. We need to also use HTML helpers encode method to encode some special characters, and I'm outputting this title in h3, and I'm gonna output also body, model, body, and I'm gonna also encode this. Okay, and below there I'm gonna write HR. Okay, let's refresh the page, and we see here the title and the description. Okay, so if we have a really long text, like let's generate using this generator, lorem ipsum. Okay, if we have a really long text there, and let's create new article, demo article, put body here, save it, and this is the view page, which we are going to also change, but let's have a look at the list first. We see that the first article, and then there's a second article, okay, which is really long. Okay, we don't want everything to be displayed in the list. Instead, we want first couple of sentences, and then when you click on the title, we want to see details there. So for this, I'm gonna do the two things. So after encoding, I'm gonna trim my text. I'm gonna use string helper and use truncate words. There are truncates which just truncates the number of characters, and truncate words truncates just words. It doesn't split the word, a single word, into two. Okay, so I'm gonna use these truncate words, pass there the body, and I'm gonna truncate like 40 words. Okay, so let's save this, refresh the page, and this is how my body looks like right now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the h3 and put it in anchor tag. So when I click on the title, I want to be redirected to the view page. Okay, so I'm going to use echo URL 2 and the URL helper and redirect to the /site, not site, but /article/view. And inside article controller, the view action basically accepts where it is. The view action basically accepts an ID of the article. We can do like this for now, but I'm going to change it into later. So I'm going to pass their ID. Okay, let's refresh the page, and we see that these are changed into links. And when I click on this, I see the view page. Let's go back, click on the demo article, and I see a view page with long text. Okay, let's first change this demo article page and make it a little bit prettier. Okay, so here detail view is used. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this detail view, and instead I'm gonna just output the following information, like PHP echo model body. We need also HTML encode right here. Okay. Okay, let me do the following. I'm going to go to the article, and below create a public function method get encoded body, which will return the following. Okay, return, instead of model, we're going to use this get encoded body, and here I'm going to use model get encoded body, and do the same thing in article item, like right here, get encoded body, and we don't want this encode, of course. Okay, let's refresh the page. Yeah, we see the same thing in the articles. We see this. Okay, let's go to the view again and change this and show who created the article and when created. Okay, so for this, I'm going to use paragraph with Bootstrap text muted. So the framework basically comes with the Bootstrap 3, but there's a package available for Bootstrap 4. If you want to use it with Bootstrap 4, that's absolutely fine. You can fully customize, as I said. You can even override the current Bootstrap version and use it for Bootstrap 4. Okay, so I'm going to use text muted inside small, and output here created by created it, and the current time, like PHP echo model. The model has field created it, but this is a timestamp. So this is a number, and which is displayed like this, and we don't want it to be like this. So we want to use a formatter component, Yii2 formatter, and we're gonna format as datetime, which will look like this, or we can format as relative time, which shows that the article was created 5 minutes ago. Okay, which is better, and I'm going to leave it like this. And created it 5 minutes ago, and let's put this inside bold tag, and below I'm gonna write created or just by, and I'm going to use the current user, not current, but the user who created this article. Okay, so I'm going to use echo model created by, which is a user model instance, and it has username. So I'm going to display basically username who created this article. So now this will throw an error, because when we created the article, created by was empty, the user was not logged in, and this will throw an error, and we can see this error. So for now, I'm going to take the ID of the Zura user and put it there, and we're going to implement it that if user is not registered, he won't be able to create a record. Okay, so I'm going to put there 3 right here also, and refresh the page, and we see that it's created at 6 minutes ago by Zura. And let's make this username into bold also. Okay. Okay, nice. Let's go back in the list, and we see 2 articles. Okay, now let's start restrictions. Or before restrictions, I'm going to do the following. The URL, when you go to the view page, the URL looks like this: article view $ID equals 1, and for the second, its ID equals 2. Okay, so I'm going to change this, and I'm going to use slug, which is more friendly, SEO-friendly, SEO-friendly. Okay, I'm going to go to the article controller, and for the view, I'm going to change that instead of ID, I'm going to accept their slug. And I'm going to change the find model also to accept a slug, and select the article based on the slug, not the ID. Okay, so here I'm going to pass slug equals to the slug, which is not declared, and this and we're going to change this basically everywhere. So inside update, I'm going to accept slug and select by and inside delete, we're going to do the same thing. And there are a couple of areas where the article is updated, it's redirected to the view page, and we need to change this also. So instead of ID, I'm going to pass their slug in the model slug, and do the same thing, slug model slug. Okay, let's scroll up and see if we did everywhere. Yeah, I think we did. Now let's go to the first in the article item and change this redirect to the article by slug. Okay, so now if I click this, I see it goes to the article view, passes their ID, but the missing required parameter slug. Okay, so I'm going to change this into slug and pass their slug also. Okay, let's go to the article list. Let's go back and hit on article, and now we see that there's a slug, but there's still this question mark slug equals something. This can be done, this can be changed from the URL manager. So I'm going to go to the web PHP, config web PHP, and there's this URL manager. So I'm going to write here the following rules. So for article slash whatever action it is, like action index or action view or action create or delete. For these actions, redirect to the article and the corresponding action. Okay, so, and then I'm going to write for article, and then when there is a slug, this corresponds to the article slash view action. Okay, so let's see the list of the articles. Okay, this shows list. I'm going to hit the create, and this still works fine. And I'm going to hit the framework, and okay, this wasn't changed for one reason, because I have view here also. I don't want view, instead I want update here. Okay, so let's see the list, hit the title, and you look at how my URL looks like. It's much prettier. Article Yii2 framework is not so bad. So this is really a SEO-friendly URL. Now let's make restrictions. Like we should not be able to create an article if I am not logged in. Okay, so for this, I'm gonna go to the list page, and there's a create article button, and I'm going to hide this create article button if the user is not logged in, authenticated. Okay, so I'm going to use if statement, if e up user component, current user component, and it has is guest property or get is guest method. So I'm going to use this is guest and put here this paragraph and end if. Okay, so let's go to the list and refresh the page. My mistake. If the user is not guest, show the create article. Okay, refresh the page and the create article was disabled. Yeah, it was hidden. So I'm going to go to the view page and I'm going to hide these two buttons also there. Okay, go to the view page and we have here these two buttons. Okay, there are update and delete, and by the way we need to change this into slug also. Okay, model slug. Okay, so that when you click the edit button you need to go to the slug, and then I'm gonna hide these buttons if the user is not authenticated. Up user is guest PHP and if. Okay, from the user interface, that's it. We have hidden these buttons. We see list, we can view the articles, but we cannot create or edit existing article or even delete. So I'm gonna log in right now with admin, okay, and go to the articles. Yeah, I can go to the articles by typing in the URL article, or I'm gonna change it. And when I hit the home page, I want to go to the articles page. Okay, so for this, I need to add default root to the application. Default root. By default, the default root is site index. So I'm going to change into article/index. Okay, so I'm going to refresh the page and I see articles right here. But if I hit the home page, it goes to the site index still. So I'm going to go to the layout and there is this home and site index. Instead of site index, I'm going to use e up default root, okay, or home URL. Basically, they are the same thing. So I'm going to hit this. It goes to the article page. Okay, so and I see this create article button is enabled right now because I'm logged in, and when I go to the article view page, I see these buttons also. Now let's add a restriction first, that we have hidden the button, this create, but we still can create article if we type this in the URL, like article/create. Okay, so if we access URL like this, we can create article, which is wrong, of course, it's a bug. So we need to go to the article controller, and in the behaviors, we are going to add an access control behavior. So we can give here name or not. It actually doesn't matter. So I'm going to do like this. So here we are going to use a class access control, which is a filter, and it will simply reject the request if the user is not authenticated. Okay, so this will work only the create article, or let's do this create, update, and delete actions. This will work on create, update, and delete actions, and the rules will be the following. For actions, update, create, and delete, allow only authenticated users. Okay, so if I refresh the page now, I see an error right here. I think I made a mistake. Let's have a look at the site controller, which has actions there. It has rules, actions, and roles is an array. Okay, roles is an array. My mistake, yeah. Okay, let's refresh the page, and we see that I was redirected to the login page because I tried to access a page on which access only is restricted for authenticated users, and I was redirected to the login page. Now I need to log in, and then I am redirected back to the article create page. Okay, so now I can create article. And the same thing will work. It will work similarly for update and delete actions. Okay, so I can create here like demo article 2, copy paste here, and the article will be created, and I'm redirected to the view page, and I see this demo article 2 in the list. Okay, let's move this article up so that the newly created articles are at the top. Okay, let's go to this article search, and here is the find. So next to the find, I'm gonna call order by method, and right here created at descending. Okay, so that the demo article 2 is at the top. And let's add also the following information, like paragraph, class text muted, as we did basically in the view. Like I'm gonna take this, put it right here. I'm gonna move this like text right. And yeah, that's it. Let's refresh the page, and we see who created when, and yeah. Okay, so now one additional thing what we need to do is to restrict that the admin user should not be able to edit Zura's articles. Okay, so if I go to the demo article right now, I have these buttons visible there. Either I can hide these buttons, but we need to also put some additional logic behind, or we can leave the button and only put their logic. Okay, so right now I'm possible to update, admin is possible to update Zura's articles. Okay, so I'm going to go to the article controller, and in the update, when the model is found, I'm going to write an if statement. If model created by is not as the current user's ID, okay, we need to throw new forbidden HTTP exception with some text. You do not have permission to update this article. Okay, and let's copy and put it after delete, but we need to first select a record and save it in a model, then check, and then delete the model. Okay, so hit the save, refresh the page, hit the update button, and I see this forbidden. You don't have permission to update this article. Hit the delete, it shows the confirmation, click OK, and I see this not to update, but we need to change this into delete. Okay, delete. Let's go back and go to my article, like admin's article, hit the update button, and I can update my own articles. And there is this error in the breadcrumbs because we are using still ID in the index. No, this is not index, this is update. Here we're using ID, we need to use slug here. Okay, so refresh, hit on it, and it works fine. Okay, now let's create virtual hosts on Windows and on Linux also. Okay, I'm going to start with Windows. Okay, you need to go to the exam folder apache conf extra, and then there is httpd vhosts conf, and we're gonna edit this. And below we're gonna copy this, by the way, yeah, and below we're gonna write the document root, the current document root, what we have right now, which is Yii2 crash course. Okay, it's the current document root is Yii2 crash course web, and the server name will be whatever you want, Yii2 crash course. Okay, test. And the logs file, we can skip it, they are not necessary. I'm going to save this, and we need to go to the Windows folder and change the hosts file. Windows system 32. There should be drivers etc hosts, and we're going to edit this and put here current local IP address in the domain name, which is Yii2 crash course test. Okay, retry as admin. Okay, this was saved. Now let's take the host file and access it. Okay, it didn't work for one simple reason. We need to reload or restart Apache. Okay, stop, start. Okay, we restarted Apache. Now let's refresh the page. And we see our application running on virtual hosts. Yii2 crash course.test. We can navigate between pages. We can see the articles. We can go to the article page, create new article if we log in, of course. And yeah, that's it on Windows. Let's see how we can do this on Linux, on Ubuntu. Okay, I have cloned this project on my Ubuntu, and I'm going to run Composer install to set it up, and it throws a couple of warnings, like I don't have PHP extensions to install, like xmbstring, xdom, and so on. So you probably have to install these packages, these PHP packages, because eFramework depends on it. Okay, so I'm going to install mbstring and XML packages. And then run Composer install. As for the virtual host for Ubuntu, we need to create new file. This file should be created in the following directory. So I'm going to create new file, sudo etc apache2 sites available. And here we're going to create new file, which has extension .conf. I'm going to call it Yii2 crash course.test.conf. And if we have a look at this, at the following GitHub page, this is the page for Yii2 advanced application. And here's written how you should set up a virtual host, and what should be basically the content of the virtual host for the advanced. This talks for front end and back end, but we can just take the first virtual host and put it right here and change this into Yii2 crash course. And instead of front end, we don't need this front end basically. So our application is I cloned my application in the following directory: var www html. Okay, let me type this. var www html Yii2 crash course/web, and I'm gonna copy this and put it at the top. Also, this is the server name, this is the document root rewrite engine on. This basically is not necessary because our application has this in htaccess. So here is the htaccess, and there is written this information. So we can basically remove this. And directory index, this is index.php. This is not also index, but depending on your Apache configuration, these things may be necessary. So I'm going to leave it as it is right now. I'm going to close and enable the current virtual host. Let's close this terminal and open the second one. I'm going to enable the this virtual host file by running sudo r2 in site, and then the name of the file, which will be Yii2 crash course test conf. And then we need to reload the Apache. Sudo service apache to reload. We've got an error during reloading Apache. That's because rewrite engine is not installed on my Ubuntu. That's a common problem for fresh installed Ubuntu. So if you want to fix this, we need to enable rewrite engine for Apache. For this, we need to run sudo a2 in mode rewrite. Okay. And then restart Apache. Now Apache was restarted successfully, but we need to add this new host into hosts file also. Sudo gedit etc hosts. The host file is located under etc on Ubuntu. So we're gonna write the current IP, and then Yii2 crash course.test. Let's move this up, save this, and yeah, we can open this in browser. Yii2 crash course test /. Yes, and this is also another common problem on Linux-based systems, the permissions. Apache right now doesn't have permissions to publish some assets. We have not talked about assets, obviously. We cannot talk about everything in this short video. Short, I mean short for such a big framework. So what we need to do right here, we need to change the permission of this web assets folder into 777. So go to the following project directory. And inside this web folder, we have assets folder. And the assets folder contains some folders, and we need to execute change mode to 777 of the assets folder recursively. Okay, let's run this, refresh the page, and we see our application running. We have articles, we can log in. We can create new article or update existing one. And one more thing I want to mention is that if you can right now see, when I'm navigating between pages, sometimes it's really slow. And that's another issue on Linux-based systems. That's permission issue. So some cache and debug files are written under runtime folder. So I'm going to go to the following folder, cd runtime, and here are some cache and debug information. So I'm going to basically delete everything from here except gitignore. Now the folder looks empty, and refresh the page. And we need to also change the permission of runtime folder into 777. Okay, change mode 777 runtime recursively. We are in the runtime current directory. Okay, let's run this. And now, as we can see, the navigating is super fast. I can register. So it works now much faster than it was before. And this is the end of this video. So the framework is really big, complex. There are a lot of things we have not covered because it's impossible to cover in this 2-hour video. So there are a lot of things according to the database, RESTful systems, uploading files, and much more. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please provide a nice comment, hit the like button, and share this video. Also, let me know in the comment section what you didn't understand, what you didn't like. I will be glad to read these comments. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next time.